Hello and welcome back to this channel. This is Reality Check. If you're new here, please subscribe, join the family, join our conversations, and if you are already part of the family, karibu sana, and we're happy to have you. Remember to share a comment, share this episode with someone, and subscribe. So on the show today, first of all, my name is Rachel. For those of you that don't know me, joining me is Evas Atwine, Doctor Evas Atwine. She is a mental health expert and advocate, also founder of the International Center for Mental Health and Family Care. And so much happens in there. We'll be telling you a bit more as we go along. We want to talk today about parenting teenagers. That's a challenge that a lot of parents face on their parenting journey. And as a mental health expert and advocate and a therapist and counselor, I know that you have interacted with young people who are having issues with their parents. And let's delve a bit into that discussion. And just to start, why is it that parenting teenagers, I know I am worried about that stage. Why is it so complicated?
Okay, so thank you, Rachel, for having me, and I'm happy that we are talking about parenting, and especially parenting teenagers.
Teenagers, yes.
I'll start here that all of parenting is difficult.
Yeah.
And the reason parenting is very difficult is that we are responsible for another person's life. That's why when it gets difficult, we say, not me, children of these days. So it's very, very difficult to shape another person's life and make sure they come out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's number one. Number two, parenting teenagers. Most of the time, we're doing well until children become teenagers.
Yes. Yes, so you think you're a great parent
till
until...
the time you're so great until it gets quite turbulent with teenagers. Why is teenage parenting different? It's a totally different landscape because at this point, children have ceased to be little babies.
Being told what
they
to
are
do.
in a stage we call transition. They are not yet adults. They are no longer children, but they are there. And so this stage is very difficult for children as well, for teenagers as well. Unfortunately, parents, we get very destabilized, and rightly so. It's very difficult because we don't acknowledge that these children are experiencing a different kind of circumstances, a set of circumstances that require us to adjust in our parenting style. Okay? So, why is it difficult? Number one, children are experiencing different changes in their lives, both emotionally and physically. Physically, we know the changes that happen. But most of the time, I've discovered that we don't understand the emotional changes. For instance, their children at this point, there is a hormonal issue. Right? Their hormones, I mean, this is physical as well as emotional. So they are experiencing hormonal changes that influences their behavior, which most of the time parents, we don't understand. For instance, for boys, the male hormone increases 10 times more than it will ever increase at any other stage in their lives.
Got it.
So that hormonal development or changes, it tends to destabilize them. So they are experiencing changes in their body. They don't understand. This is where they experience all manner of things. They have the wet dreams, all these things, and so many things. But also the brain development at this stage, at teenage stage, at age 12, 13, brain development is also happening at the highest.
Oh, is it?
Right. So now they are looking at, they are experiencing more, they are looking at, I'm no longer a child.
But I'm also
not an
old
adult,
enough,
I'm not old enough, but I want to achieve so much. So the brain opens up for them to see so many things. they get into what we call an identity issue. So they start asking, okay, I'm not a child dependent on my parent, so who am I?
Yeah,
right?
Where do I belong?
Where do I belong?
Yeah.
So there is that whole confusion that they are experiencing. And so when they are here, they are actually saying, I need more help. But the way they are saying it comes off as rebellion to parents.
Yes.
Now, it's also very important, Rachel, for me to mention that at this point, what a child desires is independence, not dependence.
And that's a struggle for many
That's
parents.
a struggle for all of us parents.
Yeah.
Because we want to hold on to our children, and rightly so.
Yeah.
So a child is saying, I need to be independent, now I need to think on my own. Now, their thinking processes, their feeling processes, their behavior, everything changes. But it's not because they are bad children. They're just experiencing a change.
Yeah.
For instance, when they are thinking, their thinking process changes from what we call concrete thinking to what we call abstract thinking. This is what it is.
Yeah.
So concrete thinking is where a child is still depending on what they are told, and they are thinking exactly that.
Yes.
But now they get into what we call abstract thinking. They are now looking at, hey, there's this way I can actually achieve that. That's where children begin thinking about, they start talking about, oh, do I have to study to be successful? They start telling us all the people that have succeeded without education.
Yeah.
So most of them want to be Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg,
Yeah.
all those. And that thinking, it's not because they are crazy.
Yeah.
It's not because they are perverted. It's just because they have swung into a different kind of thinking process, which is different from what we have, as parents, we have taught them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's very important for us to know that this independence is not necessarily rebellion against parents. It's actually they are growing to determine their own identity, right? To make their own brand.
Yeah.
Plus, they're experiencing changes in their body.
Okay, I would want us to explore more on the issue of independence as what they feel that they need.
Yeah.
How do parents then manage that independence? Is it even possible to give them a level of independence while they experience those changes?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's right. So when we talk about independence, we are talking about independent thinking. We're talking about decision making.
Decisions, yes.
Decision making.
Yeah.
And a number of things. So let me begin with independent thinking. Now, when at this point, I mentioned that children begin to think about their own things, right? So they are going to come to you with, why is it necessary? This is a stage where children are challenging all the systems that have been taught to them, including religion, including all that. Do I need this to be there? Do I need to do that?
Yeah.
Now, the role of a parent is to listen to what they are saying and provide guidance.
Correct.
But what happens? Most of the time we get frustrated. We tell them, we say, you're getting spoiled.
Or if you're going to live in my house, you're going to follow
You're going
my
to
rules.
have to do this.
Yes.
But that independent thinking, so they are going to come with all these abstract things. They are all these, do I have to study? Do I have to, by the way, this? And do I have to, So they are going to challenge so many things because they are doing a lot of thinking. Now they are saying, okay, up to this point, my parent has been telling me what to do, but now I have to think on my own because now I'm a man, I'm a big girl. And they always tell us, they say, now I'm an adult, now I'm big. Now, so we are going to hear all those statements. So the advice given to parents is, please don't get upset. Don't think, so getting frustrated should not be our first line response.
Yeah.
Rather, we need to understand where this person is coming from. And I'm sure you know that children now are exposed to much more than us parents knew. So they are also going to come with perspectives that we don't know of. They read a lot, they see a lot, there's so much information. And so how do we manage what children are saying? So this thinking process also it speaks to the independence they need.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So we need to help them know that, okay, so this information has to be managed. We need to help to sit with them and analyze that information and say, okay, yeah, so these people, there are people who have succeeded without education, for instance, but do you know their full story?
Do you?
Do you know?
Yeah.
Are you ready to go through the struggles they went through? Are you so are you just looking at success, or you're ready to walk that journey with them?
Yeah.
So that's number one. Decision making. It's highly encouraged that, because at this point they're also saying, I need to make my own decisions.
Yes.
But parents need to come in and graciously, not in a frustrated way, to say, yes, I know that you need to make certain decisions. That's okay, and actually I want to encourage you. So they're going to make decisions about what they dress, how they dress, and what they put on, and and all that. And they're going to pick all these ideas from everywhere. So how do we help them with decision making? Number one, we need to help them make certain decisions. This is a point where they challenge certain things. Can I give an example? Yes. Our firstborns are twins, and up till that point, they were putting on same
clothes. Yes.
And I loved it.
I know.
Oh, I loved it.
Looking at them.
Yeah, so looking at them, they look amazing. They are in this. So when they got there, they said, Mommy, we want to buy our own clothes. We don't want to put on the same clothes. And I was like, what? I thought you were enjoying it. You
Not as much as you.
You see? So they are going to make certain decisions. And so we encourage parents, please release them to make certain decisions. And at this point, I encourage parents, please change your parenting style to move. If you are used to instruction, you're going to get into negotiation.
Conversation.
And conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Get into conversation. Listen, hear this child out. And if they want to make certain decisions, you're going to check how far they can go with certain decisions, because we don't just let them do,
whatever they want.
Wake up and say, I think I don't want school. Oh, yeah, you're big enough. No, that's not what we are saying. But if you're going to change their school, please involve them. Involve them in that conversation. Let them understand why certain decisions have to be made. And so they desire to be a part of this conversation. Now, when you do that, you're communicating a message that, by the way, you're old enough now.
And I trust you.
And I trust you. You're communicating trust. You're communicating responsibility, that they can make certain decisions. And it's very helpful for them. But so that's a kind of independence that you also need. And of course, also releasing them. I always use an analogy of driving. You know, when we are driving, when there is some bit of space, you
release.
You release.
Yeah. Put some pressure on the accelerator.
Right.
Just a little. Yes.
Right. So give them information, and follow up, check in. Don't come off instructive. Once we instruct, they resent.
They shut down.
They shut down. And that's why most children at this point, if you check with parents, they complain about they are putting on earphones and locking you out, and they lock us out. So we need to be very careful how we approach them. And if a parent is used to, once again, instruction, only instructional method, this is how it is, this is it, most of the time we lose our children at this point.
You hinted on something that I think is a challenge for today's parents, and I want you to whether expound on it and maybe give us a bit more challenges that parents of teenagers are bound to face today. Obviously, the challenges today are different from the challenges maybe 10 or 15 years ago. What are some of the challenges that parents are bound to find as they journey with their teenagers, for those that are coming into this age group? Or for those that are already in it and maybe don't understand, you know, there's turmoil in the house, there's chaos, and they don't know, where do I begin to tackle this issue? So what are some of those challenges
the parents are experiencing? So, number one is that most of us parents are still stuck in old method of parenting, And I'll mention here, I've said all of relationship management is skill.
Yes.
And parenting is skill. So if we don't get knowledge about parenting, it becomes a problem. For instance, most of us, maybe my generation, not yours, but my generation, most of us are priding in my parent was tough.
Yes.
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 And so, by the way, we are likely to parent the way we were parented.
We were parented, yes, for sure.
Because we believe that's even when it was
turmoil,
dysfunctional,
yes, yes.
And turmoil, and you hate it, we still believe that's the right way to parent. But the challenge most parents have is that they are not willing to learn. Yes, so parenting is skill. So we need these skills, and we need so much information. Now, I've already said that 21st century relationships, by the way, we are failing because they require skill.
Yeah.
We are no longer in the other old compartments where someone just gives instructions and that's it. There's so much knowledge, there's so much skill that we need to be able to parent the children. For instance, I'll tell you that parents need to know what kind of parent they are. Now, we run a parenting program, and the #1 session I do is to help parents understand
what kind,
the different parenting styles and the kind of child you're likely to have from your parenting style. So for instance, if you are a parent that is just authoritarian, all you do is to give instruction, you don't entertain conversation, there's no communication with the child, you only give instruction. So anything that the child hears is do this, do that, this is how, this is, don't shame our family and all that. Teenagers in that kind of parenting dispensational situation, they are likely to be rebellious. Because at this point they are saying, no, I'm not taking instruction, just listen to me as well. So there is always that struggle that a parent needs to know that they need to make some adjustment to be authoritative, where you give instruction, but it's also governed by explanation and warmth.
Yes.
You see? And the child feels considered, they feel their views are considered, they feel heard, they feel listened to. It's very important. But also a parenting style like permissive. So if you are a permissive parent who gets controlled by a 2-year-old child, I mean, you've seen them.
They are there.
They are there. I've met them in supermarkets. They are rolling on the ground saying, oh, you have to buy for me this and that. And the parent is stuck. Because they are not able to give structure, they don't correct children, they don't give instruction. All they do is that
whatever the child
does. Now remember, I already mentioned that at a point at a teenage stage, a child is experiencing so many things. They have all these crazy ideas, maybe wonderful ideas. They have that abstract thinking. They have so many things that may not work. But they are thinking anyway. They have emotions. This is a point where we need to teach them emotional regulation. Right? They need to control emotions. They need to manage them. They need to manage anger. They need to manage all these other emotions like lust and all. That's where we need to teach them. To teach them. So if you are a permissive parent who gets to this point and say, abana benaku zino, children of these days, I can't manage now, internet, then it's likely to be very disadvantageous, you see. So parents need to learn. They need to learn, because the challenge is we think we can do parenting the way we were parented. Then secondly, I mean, maybe related to that, parents need to read. They need to read. We need information. We can't parent without information. Children are moving ahead of us. We are not in step with what is happening. And so most of the time, parents are challenged. So children come with all these days and we are trying to shoot them down. Don't tell me those silly things. Don't tell me those things. But you see, children are bringing all this and they are exposed to that. And it can only get worse.
Yeah.
Because there's so much information. We are operating in an information era.
Yeah.
And so we need to be in step with what children know. So what we encourage parents to do is to ask and say, what's that? But most of the time we want to pretend that we know.
Yes.
Right? The third challenge is we lack role models.
For our children.
For our children.
Yes.
Very interesting. We run a character building program for children. And we ask them a question. Who is your role model? Very interesting. Like 90% of the children talk about musicians, you know, celebrities
film
and all that,
celebrities,
and
yes.
pasta and all that.
Yeah.
And parents are not role models to their children.
Ouch. Yeah.
And that's a very big challenge.
Yeah.
Now, can I tell you what? 80%, I'm a psychologist, 80% of what a child learns is modeled.
Yes. From their parents.
From their parents.
Yeah.
So if a child is seeing negativity, bad behavior from the parents, they are going to not only resent that, but some of them suck it in. And when they see their parents are not really showing good behavior or demonstrating good behavior, they don't consider them as great role models. Now, so when parents are not positioning themselves to influence their children's behavior by their own behavior, then it's a problem. And this is happening for different reasons. Number one, parents are absent.
Yes. They're busy making money.
They're very busy making money for the children.
Yes.
For the children. And they have little time committed to
actually parenting.
Teaching and parenting.
Yeah.
Right? So they are not interacting with children. And so you leave home when a child is sleeping, you come back home when a child is sleeping. Now, when they are young, we think it's all normal, it's okay. We bring food and bribe them with ice cream and do all that. But when they become teenagers, it gets rocky.
And the foundation is set at the beginning.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now, for instance, if you don't have a relationship of conversation, of interaction with your child, when a child turns a teenager and they are looking for independence, most of us are running to find them in their independence grounds. And we're saying,
to try and parent
what's wrong
them?
with
Yes,
you?
yes.
Please come out. And that's how children, teenagers are locking themselves in bedrooms, or they are putting earphones and locking you out. And this is how, so that's why we encourage, please, interact with the children, spend time, because parenting is both about quantity time and quality time.
Yes.
And I've had parents say, no, as long as quality time. What do you mean quality time? Because you're not going to understand your child and their behavior. And that's why most of the time we get shocked when they say your child is engaged, and you say, like, how? A child from this family? But you don't know them.
Yeah.
You don't know them.
Yeah.
Because knowing each other comes from spending time together.
Yes. Yeah. There's a dynamic in homes, especially where there are teenage girls clashing with their mothers. You'll always hear, even with the adults today, you always hear, there was a time I used to fight with my mom a lot. Oh, there was a time I used to argue with my mom a lot. What is that about? Is there any science related to this mother-daughter relationship? And how can moms have a healthy relationship with their daughters, especially in trying to navigate this teenage stage?
Okay, so number one is that women, we are created to deal with detail.
Yes.
And you know the devil lies in the detail.
Yes, it does.
Okay?
Yeah.
So moms, we are nurturers. And in that nurturing, there's so much detail. There are certain things we see. There's lots of gut feeling about certain things. So that detail, most of the time, dads don't see. Right?
Yeah.
And so because of our nurturing nature, we get in and we are teaching this, and we are teaching discipline, and we are saying, say thank you, you know, like the
Yes.
Magic words.
Please, thank you.
Please, thank you, excuse me, and I'm sorry. Now, most of that, these are taught by moms. And teaching discipline has never been fun.
No.
Oh, so, you know, discipline is so inconveniencing. So most of the time, moms clash with children because of that level of detail. Right? So there isn't anything like we are we are perverted or we are wicked inherently. No, it's because we deal with so much detail. And human nature hates discipline. Right? Yeah. And so that's why you'll find that most children say, Daddy is okay.
But mommy
is so strict. It's because we get into teaching detail. Detail. And so what advice can I give to moms to develop a good relationship? It's to explain. When we are teaching, let's explain the importance of what we are teaching to the child,
yes.
Not to you.
Yeah.
You're not going to shame us. Just say, you see that now you have a sulky behavior and this is going to affect your relationships.
Yes.
It's going to affect you in the workplace. People get fired because they don't know how to take feedback.
Yes.
You see, people lose marriages, they lose friends because they pull off that kind of sulky behavior. And so when we are teaching, let's help children understand why this discipline or this behavior you're teaching them is good for them, not you.
Yes.
Not you. Sometimes we are rough. We just say, you're not going, I'm not going to allow you. That doesn't help. Because when you get to a point where a child challenges you, then it can be horribly devastating. Yeah, so that's what I can say about that.
Yeah, no, I think it's important for moms, I guess, and parents in general to explain why they are doing what they're doing.
Very important.
Yeah, and even to your point of, you know, getting information, arming yourself with information.
Yeah.
I think if there's anything that no one prepares you for, it is parenting. Yeah. And it would be a disservice to you to try and parent without information.
Information.
Yeah.
Very, very dangerous.
And I would like for you to speak to a parent who's probably preparing to enter that arena.
Stage.
Yeah, so that stage. What are some of the things that they need to be doing now to prepare? And I mean, you've kind of talked a bit about it, but what are some of those things they need to be doing to prepare themselves and their children for when they're in the parenting
teenage stage?
Teenage stage.
So number one is establish a relationship. Get connected. Get connected. And I can hear some parents say, really? Too late.
Yeah.
And I want to assure them that it's never too late to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I want to say this again also, that children are the most forgiving human beings.
They really are.
They're very forgiving. So it doesn't matter what attitude they have towards you and me, as long as we start doing the right thing. So if you haven't been nice, considerate, certain things that you feel convicted about, please address them. Because teenage stage can really, really be a brain teaser if we are not ready for it. It comes with that kind of challenge and seeming rebellion. And if a child is not helped at this stage, they can really have a very rocky adulthood, right? Because this is a very, very sensitive, it's so critical.
It's like you're transitioning.
You're transitioning. You're orienting someone for adulthood. Now, all of parenting is to prepare someone for adulthood. And so we need to do that. Secondly, I mentioned changing parenting style.
Yes.
Now, all of us, even when you're an authoritative parent, you're considerate, you need to up the game at this stage. And let things be more about listening, guiding, teaching, and correcting with grace, because now you're dealing with someone who considers themselves older than you. You know, some of these children, by the way, at teenage stage, they are even taller than us.
Yes, they're towering over you.
Towering over you, and you're talking, and they are looking at you, and they're saying, who is this?
What
I'm
does she
even taller
know?
than them. So we just need to humble ourselves and be a nurturer rather than an instructor. Because if you instruct, you're going to experience resentment. Thirdly, to be available. This is a very critical stage. Very critical stage. For instance, I always advise dads who have boys. At this point, the boy is going through a lot, both physically and emotionally. Now, I didn't tell you that at this stage, that's where most children experience depression. Because they're doing a lot of thinking, they're experiencing so many changes, both physically, emotionally, and it's confusing to them. And then they hear parents are saying, what's wrong with you? And another person is saying, you're not good enough. They experience self-esteem issues. They are comparing bodily changes. Someone is saying, your body is not as beautiful as the other one, and all that. Until this time, it wasn't happening. And they are going through a lot. Now, boys are also going through a lot. Now, when they are going through a lot, they need someone to help them.
Preferably someone like them.
A dad. A dad to connect with. Otherwise, they're going to get all these ideas from their peers. They say, oh, you're a man now. You're a man. You're a man. Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a... You explain, wet drip, how did you? And so they need a dad to explain these things to them. And a dad who is absent, I want to tell you that your wife is not going to experience these things to your son because they've never experienced them. They don't know them. They don't know them. Now, that's why identity crisis happens here. And especially when a boy has been connected to a wife, to their mother,
to their mom,
and all they know is just this relationship. That's where most of them get confused. And they go like, am I? So we encourage, especially dads, please be there. Explain wet dreams to them. Explain certain things to them. Explain all these bodily things that a mom may not be able to explain. So it's very important to commit time to them. The other important thing to do for parents is to make sure that we are mindful of what our children are seeing in us.
Or what you're modeling.
What are you modeling to these children? What are they seeing? How do you treat one another? Now, remember, this is important even when children are younger. They're seeing how you relate. Remember, at this point, they are thinking about opposite sex relationships. And so, when they see a girl, what image of a woman do they have? Do they see a disrespectful mom or wife? And are they saying to hell with women? So that's where they are forming perceptions about that gender, because they are getting it from them. How about a dad? How do your sons see you treat your wife? And so you hear dads say, it doesn't matter. Or moms say it doesn't matter. It matters a great deal because 80% of what this child will turn out to be is learned from home. Is modeled, is caught. It is caught, not taught. More than taught. So it's very, very important that we are concerned about how we are living before our children and especially teenagers. Because they are going to challenge us.
This is true.
They're going to challenge us.
This is true. I mean, as we try and wind up this conversation, I've thought about another dynamic that could be challenging to parents of teenagers. We are witnessing divorce, separation, of course, between parents. Maybe a family going through a traumatic experience, like maybe losing everything. Like maybe they lose money and they have to start from scratch. Could you speak to a parent or parents that might be going through something that has happened in the family that has changed the entire landscape of their family, and yet they have teenagers?
First of all, I'll tell you that teenagers who have grown up in such a landscape, it's more difficult. For sure, because when they were little, they felt like they had nothing to do about it. But when they get to teenage stage, by that time, first of all, they are angry. They are looking at their defense system failing, they're disappointed in their parents, and all that is happening. They're processing so much. And so it's very important, once again, to, maybe I should say this, that when challenges are happening in your relationship, please don't expose children. Don't use them as weapons to fight, because they'll get to a point where you need them healthy, but then you've already put so much hatred or anger, and you cannot solve it. But coming back to your question of, okay, so the landscape has changed, probably parents have separated and all that. We encourage, and this is not something to do alone, we encourage that parents, as much as possible, ensure that they fight smart.
Yes.
So you're fighting, you're angry, you're disappointed and all that, but always remember that there is an additional loss if children are angry and are involved, right? That's why we encourage healthy co-parenting. Now, it sounds like a joke.
Like an oxymoron.
You understand?
Yes.
Because really, we are fighting and you're saying we should be neat? Yes, because you don't want more loss. Remember, and Rachel, I believe we're going to have this conversation on divorce, but I want to tell you that when divorce happens, we lose more than just the marriage. Our children get horribly affected. Affected. And so how do we mitigate this effect? So this negative effect is mitigated by how we communicate the processes to the children. I mean, be humble and tell them, sorry, you know what, our relationship has failed to work, or daddy and I couldn't, or mommy and I couldn't. But it doesn't mean that we hate you, because most of the time children think they are the problem. And the moment they think they are the problem, it's harder to correct. So you need to get in. And you also, it's very important for parents to know the emotions children are experiencing. What are they experiencing? What fears do they have? What anger do they have? Who are they angry towards? What's happening? So it's very important for parents to keep checking in and ensure that they're not just obsessed with their own challenges and pain, but you're checking in with the children to understand what is happening. But the most important thing, give them information. Communicate truth to them. They'll be able to understand.
I mean, especially because as a teenager, like you said, they're not thinking concretely, they're thinking abstractly. At that point, yes, they understand what is going on, they can see. They've probably already picked up on the tension between you and your partner. So it's important not to, one, use them as pawns in your fights, but also not treat them like they don't understand.
They don't understand. Even the little ones understand.
Even the little ones understand.
Now, I should have mentioned, Rachel, on that note, before I forget, that this is a point where children need therapy.
Yes.
Sometimes parents, if they manage, they get therapy, but they assume children are okay. They are not okay. You're not their cover. Yes, you're there, but they have questions. And as long as a child has questions that can't be answered, that's a recipe for disaster. Because they don't get a lot of emotional release. Adults do. Adults talk to each other, they go pray, they talk to a pastor, they do that. But a child just keeps recycling pain, confusion, and as long as they do that, that's how most of them plunge into negative coping mechanisms. So it's very important that parents know that these children are human too, and they can be little, but they need answers to certain questions that they have.
Well, thank you so much, Evas, Dr. Evas. I need to get used to calling you Dr. Evas. I think this has been a very enlightening conversation, and if you're a parent out there and you have teenagers or your children are about to transition into that stage, I think the information here has been very helpful. Key points would be to arm yourself with information. and then be sure that you are going to change your parenting style. You cannot parent your teenager the same way you were parenting your toddler or your 8-9-year-old. So find information, and of course ICFC is here for you if your child needs therapy, if you are going through a transition in your family that has caused some changes and perhaps your teenagers need therapy. You can always reach out to ICFC for that. We'll leave the contacts in the description box. Share with us a comment. What have you learned from this episode? What are your thoughts on the topic of discussion? We'd love to hear from you. We'll be back with another conversation right here on Reality Check.